Is Zimbabwe about to become Africa's newest oil producer? You would think that, given the headlines we've seen over the past 4 years. But what is the truth? Are we about to produce oil? Are we about to all become oil millionaires? Today, let's look at the facts.
The state of the nation.
To understand where we are today, let's go back a few years, back to the 1990s. One of the biggest oil companies, Mobil, believed that there was oil in Muzarabani. This is a vast area in the Cabora Bassa Basin. Mobil sent in its experts. They spent a lot of time and millions of dollars to find if there was oil there. They gathered a lot of data. It showed that if there was any oil there, it was too little to be exploited commercially. The data also showed them that there was likely more gas than oil there. At the time, there was no big market for gas, so Mobil moved out of there. Fast forward 30 years later, things have changed. Gas is in demand now. In comes Invictus Energy. This is an energy explorer. These are companies that take the risk of spending millions of money looking for energy resources. When they do find the resource, they call in bigger investors to partner with them. Invictus spoke to the Zimbabwe government. They were allowed and given licenses to start looking for gas in Muzarabani and Mbire. Let's go through the steps they are taking. First, remember, Mobil did some work there already. As a start, Invictus went into the archives and dug up the Mobil survey results. But technology has changed. They needed more data, so they did their own surveys. They got more data. Here's one interesting fact. 16 gig, that was the size of the data set that Mobil gathered in the 90s. 4,000 gig, that's how much data Invictus has gathered so far. Big change. The data shows them that there is a good chance of gas in the area. But there is only one way of knowing for sure. It is exploration drilling. They must drill a really deep well to find the gas. Now, how do they know where to dig? Well, by listening. Not the kind of listening that you and I do. This is where it gets interesting. It's back to high school science class. They've done what is called a seismic survey. They contracted a Canadian company called Polaris. Polaris has these special trucks they use for the job. Each truck sends vibrations into the ground. These vibrations are then sent back up to special sensors. They use the sound waves to figure out where the best places to drill are. It's kind of like a surgeon trying to figure out where to operate. Now that the seismic stage was done, what's next? Invictus is going to start drilling 2 exploration wells. These are very deep. It's not like drilling a borehole. These wells go to as deep as 4 kilometers. That's right, 4 kilometers into the earth. This drilling exercise will cost Invictus at least $25 million US. But does this drilling mean that we are guaranteed to find gas? Sadly, no. It's a gamble. Over the last few years, there have been over 150 exploration wells drilled in Africa. Of these 150, only 54 had a bit of oil and gas. And of these 54, just 9 were commercially viable. Yes, less than 10% of the wells that have recently been drilled in Africa were successful.
We need to know the risks in this business. Let's ask our neighbors. Namibia recently discovered oil, but do you know when they started drilling? In 1974. Yes, that's almost 50 years ago. South Africa has drilled at least 200 wells that came up dry. Let's go to Abu Dhabi. It is a major producer of oil and gas, but did it happen overnight? No. They started searching for oil in the 1930s. Drilling only started 20 years later in the 1950s. The first wells came up dry. It was only in the 1960s that they started getting something. That's 30 years after they started looking for oil and gas. Even when you discover oil or gas, it may take ages before you actually get it out of the ground. Uganda discovered oil in 2006, but they expect to start drilling it in 2025. It will be nearly 20 years between the time they confirm that they had the oil to the time they can actually drill it. Let's say we do discover gas. What's in it for the country? Number one, a lot of our industries will benefit. An example is Sable Chemicals, our biggest fertilizer manufacturer. They will be able to use gas to produce their fertilizer. The good news is that Invictus and Sable have entered into an MOU. Should any gas be found, Sable will get 70 million cubic feet of gas every day for 20 years. Think of the vast opportunities in turning gas to power for Zimbabwe and the region. What about the government? This is where government's negotiation skills must come in. Invictus Energy and the government have been discussing what's called a production sharing agreement. This is standard in these projects. There will be an agreement on how much of the money from the gas will go to the government, how much goes to the communities of Mbire and Mzarabani, and how much the investor will get. There must be a balance between the interest of the investor who has put in so much money into the project and the government, which represents the people who own these resources. We must watch this closely. Too many times, communities have been shortchanged in terms of what they will get from their own resources. So this is where we are. Yes, we must hope for the best, but need to get a few things right before we get too excited. One, it is more likely to be gas than oil. Number two, we will have to wait until drilling is done to know for sure what we have down there. Like, share, comment, and subscribe.